Yeah, sure.
Right. Now, Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav has called on citizens and businesses to consciously reduce expenditure, and that requires foreign exchange outflows. Now, amid the continuing global uncertainty and the ongoing war-related disruptions, let's listen into what he had to say.
Since the war is now still going on, and yesterday's developments we all know, that truce is still far away, looking kind of difficult. So that's why it's very important that we as citizens in this entire effort. We as citizens, as our Prime Minister has asked all of us to, can reduce our expenditure on everything that requires foreign exchange to be spent. And in our lives, in our own ways of working, we can identify whatever we can do to preserve the foreign exchange. Simultaneously, we must also earn the foreign exchange more and more. Both things have to go in parallel. So I'll request all of you to take cognizance of Honorable Prime Minister's call to the nation, and within your own means, within your own enterprises, within your own businesses, try to do whatever best you can.
Right. Now, there was also an appeal by the Prime Minister to also encourage more people to work from home, and it could probably amount in saving a lot of our, of course, time and then fuel. To discuss this, now we are joined in by Ganesh Natarajan, Chairman and co-founder of 5F World and Lighthouse and Chairman of Honeywell Automation India Limited and former Chairman NASSCOM. And then we also have Bala Subramanian A. He's a Senior Vice President, teamlease Services. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. Let's quickly get on with your reaction, Mr. Bala Subramanian. The work from home appeal has come back, and, of course, social media and internet is flooded, with memes around work from home around this time after Prime Minister's appeal yesterday. But, at a time when, many industries and businesses had started setting up these expansive facilities, offices, HR has been sending mails to employees to come back to work after COVID. Over the past couple of years have gone by doing this. Now we are going back to work from home. How practical and feasible is it in today's world now?
Hey, good evening. Thanks so much for having me first. I don't really understand why everybody is taking this call to work from home out of context. The Prime Minister isn't saying that everybody should, consider work from home as an alternative. He's saying that among other options, such as the idea is to conserve fuel, right? So you can commute less, or you can commute differently. Use public transport, use electric vehicles, or if you can, depending on your role and the fitment for your organization, evaluate work from home. So that's one of the many options which are tabled to drive the ultimate objective of trying to be judicious about forex, and particularly with respect to fuel. So this isn't like how it was during COVID, where work from home was your default option to make sure that we don't put our lives on the line. Here we are talking about our long-term sustenance as a country, as an economy. Even without this war situation being around, this is something we should be judicious about. And if you look at it, 5 years back during COVID, since you mentioned that, we spent about $112 billion on the four principal commodities, the import cost essentially, on crude oil, gold, vegetable oils, and fertilizer. As we speak today, this has more than doubled to about $241 billion. This is not sustainable at all. More than 1/3 of the import budget is just towards these four commodities. And out of this $241 billion, about 135 is just crude. The government is taking a significant hit in absorbing this to maintain the retail prices at the same level. Again, that is not sustainable, because we don't really want to pass on this inflation to the people. So yes, I think it really needs to be looked at in this context, that is work from home as an option. And while companies have been really asking employees to come back to the office, it isn't necessarily to make them work all 5 days in the office. But during COVID, since we weren't coming to the office at all, people saw that as a new normal and they completely stopped coming to the office. So the call to office was more from a hybrid workforce standpoint rather than eliminating work from home entirely. Even today, work from home is advised and in fact recommended and encouraged on an as needed basis by many companies that we work with, for that matter, except in unavoidable situations where people are in field sales jobs where you absolutely have to go to the field. That is one example. Or if you are a service technician where you have to go to the client site or the customer's house, whichever is applicable to you, you'll have to do it anyway. Or if you're in a factory setup or a warehouse setup where your work involves touching and feeling physical goods, for example, or delivering an at-home service, etc., you will have to be on the site. You cannot really avoid that. Or if you're a healthcare worker, even during COVID, there was no question of work from home. So yeah, I really don't understand why this is being taken out of context and being made light of. But end of the day, it's our, I would say, civil responsibility to ensure that we conserve forex and mitigate the impact as much as we can.
Right, right. Let's get Dr. Natarajan's reaction on this. How does, the large scale, this work from home really affect, the saving of course, beyond the cost of commute, etc. How much does it affect, the energy saving and also in the middle of, the West Asia crisis, if you can help us understand that as well.
No, first of all, let me apologize. I'm in a car on the way to a meeting. But to answer your question, I think I agree with what Bala said, that this is just one measure. It is a correct measure in the sense wherever possible, one should encourage working from home. But it's a double-edged thing. I mean, we have experienced even in COVID that, people who have come from maybe small towns and living in cities like Pune, Bangalore, typically sharing an apartment, 4 people sharing an apartment, 2 bedrooms. So it's almost impossible for them to work from home. I remember in our office, and we employ close to 750 people, and all of them came back and said, can you please maybe enlarge the office, but we want to work from office. So I think there will be a combination. It would be very unfortunate if there was a mandate to work from home, because that would really affect productivity. But where possible, maybe 40-50% of the
saving fuel. We're talking about saving fuel, and since both of you are making on the similar line, yes.
Yeah, saving fuel is an automatic outcome of working
but
from home and carpooling, etc.
Yeah, but there are these sectors, which are these dedicated office areas, and there is an entire economy that flourishes around those. Like, for example, where we are and where our office is located, it's surrounded by a lot of offices. There are food places, there are restaurants around. If you come here on a Sunday evening, it's almost empty. But, of course, there are tea stalls, there are, women making food. There is an entire ecosystem and economy flourishes around these key office areas. There are, of course, businesses that has invested in this real estate infrastructure. So how will this work from home appeal impact that and the livelihood of people who have built their entire, work around it?
No, I think you're taking it way too far. This is a temporary measure. I do not think as a nation we can afford to have everybody working from home. And that's never going to happen. And I think temporarily, if it takes even 3 months and 40% of the people work from home, that is possible. But I don't think we can look at it as saying that, look, now we will impact livelihoods and people will completely work from home in future. There is no way to build an economy. And I would certainly not advocate something like that happening.
Moving on to the next panelist, Mr. Bala Subramanian. Are there any other more effective fiscal measures, according to you, such as import duty hikes that could actually help stabilize the rupee without, relying so much on, voluntary public lifestyle changes, so to speak?
See, honestly, this is way above my pay grade and way outside my area of expertise, but I'll still venture, a response to this. See, the point is, these things are much easier said than done, right? I mean, look at it this way. If we do not really have natural reserves of crude, we don't have shale, we don't have, sort of oil wells, so to speak. And if bulk of our transport is dependent on renewable, non-renewable, the traditional modes of fuel such as crude, petrol, diesel, etc., and all that. You can't really change that overnight. I mean, how can anyone propose to do that? At this point in time, we'll have to make do with what we have. And if we have 150 crore people who, with a little bit of you know responsibility and by making better choices, can even impact this by a few percentage points, it can help us stretch our reserves maybe, or reduce the impact on forex, etc. It's really going to help, and that's the spirit of what the PM is saying. And it's not just about fuel; it's also about, for example, not buying more gold than is necessary. And we all know in the last couple of years, especially because of the massive rally in gold prices, safe haven bets have been
Subramanian,
diverted towards
yeah.
gold. It's only fed to this. Yeah,
Right,
so
you're
it's
calling
just
it
a call for
temporary,
behavior.
but we never know when this crisis or when this war will actually end, because every time we think of it as, there is going to be a ceasefire, which was fragile in its own right, we don't know how long will this go on. So there is no end date to it. So how can we certainly say? It's almost like going back to COVID era, where we didn't know, when will we resume back to going to offices. So it's almost like that.
Yeah. Point where you can work from home, and if you can conserve traditional fuel and can use electric vehicles and can use public transport, do it. All of these things are healthy practices even in a world without COVID or a world without this war. It is just that because of this war we have a situation where we'll have to do it. Now it's not a nice to have thing, it's more of a must have thing. That's pretty much it. Even before this war, the environment angle was always there. The government had taken steps, for example, to blend ethanol into petrol. They had beaten their own target of 10% blending, and we are now way ahead of even the 20% mark. The government is talking about 40% now. So the point is, even without this war situation being afoot, it's always been in our best interest to do what is right by the environment, to do what is right by the people as well. Because if people commute little less, if you adopt hybrid workforce, a hybrid working model, then
Right.
apart from the time, effort, and money that people will save, the impact on the environment will also be lower. You will have less traffic-related congestion. You will have less road rage.
Absolutely, Mr. Bal Subramanian, all points taken, all agreed, but you know how it works. Unless it's mandatory or there is some kind of a remuneration for the businesses and companies who actually execute work from home, it doesn't happen. And that's the way of doing things. That's how things go on. So do you think that, will in the coming days, since now it's just an appeal, do you think it could become mandatory if the West Asia crisis goes out of our hand? Do you think there is a chance that it can become mandatory and move beyond just an appeal?
Very hard to say at this point in time, but I think the powers to be are also very clear that if you mandate one way or the other, that you mandate work from home 100%, or if you go the other way and mandate, let's say, everybody should come to the office, I mean, either way, it's not really optimal. And it's really important that corporate India is able to make their choices to function at their optimal best so that they are able to contribute towards the growth of our country. Ultimately, what are we really looking at? We are looking at how we can maximize our GDP growth year on year so that we are able to achieve our vision of Viksit Bharat by 2047. That's the whole point. And because of this war, our GDP growth projections have already been revised downwards, unfortunately, because it's now been going on for a few months and we don't really have an end in sight. So it is really going to have a few quarters impact, at least in this financial year, which has just started. So if at all you mandate work from home, and because of that there is going to be an impact on productivity, and because of that there is going to be an impact on the growth delivered by India Incorporated, is that really a situation that you want to have on your hands? I don't really think so. And which is exactly why I believe it's not really going to be mandated. But the idea is to see if we can achieve an equilibrium where you can improve your proportion of work from home without really impacting the business outcomes. That is the call for action in our understanding.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Bala Subramanian and Dr. Natarajan, for joining us today on ET Now for this conversation about work from home.
Thank you.